I know you're probably thinking I'm the least likely person to have ever been in a cult. Or maybe you would think that, or did think that, or I don't know. But this is just to show that anyone can have lived through this. Even your favorite content creators aren't exempt from this. And yeah, I'm one of them. And now, when I say I escaped, I don't even know if that's necessarily 100% true. I honestly don't know what's true with my life right now, or my past and what I've been through. But at least I'm aware of the status of the cult that I was a part of. So I'm going to tell you about it, and I'm going to show you all the things that I had to live through growing up. I mean, to start out, I didn't know it was a cult at first. But as I got older, even people in the cult were admitting that it was a cult. But they didn't seem to care. I mean, I didn't even care. Because this cult was the most important thing to us. It was the most fulfilling thing ever. So I'm going to tell you about it. First, one thing we had to do was wear these specific outfits or costumes. This wasn't all the time, but it was sometimes, and it was usually after a culmination of work that we had done, and it was basically rewarding us for all the work that we had done. They would let us wear these costumes, or force us to wear these costumes. And they were always different, but each time it usually followed the same theme as everyone else. But it was never the same as the last. Sometimes the costumes were just regular clothes that we would wear, or at least they looked like clothes that we would wear, but they just weren't ours. They'd pick them out from like a costume closet, or sometimes they'd even rent or buy these costumes. Sometimes it was like fancier clothes, like suits or dresses. Sometimes it was more like old-timey clothes, or like cowboy western clothes. And sometimes we wore costumes that honestly didn't even really make any sense. It would be like animals or fairy tale creatures, or like ogres or something like that. And these costumes would also go with very, very heavily applied makeup. Like we would have to cake the makeup on so thick to our face that people could see us from so far away. Another thing we had to do a lot is sing songs. All the time we had to sing these songs. And it was kind of like a power dynamic thing. The people who were selected to sing by themselves often got the most praise, but the majority of people would sing in a large group. And we would always have to sing on a raised platform. And just thinking back to it, there were so many songs that we had to learn and sing. And they were often accompanied by dance. The songs where large groups of people were singing together were usually the ones that pretty much always you could count on a dance being part of it. And the times when just the selected singers would be singing was less likely that there would be dancing. Sometimes there would be, but it wasn't guaranteed. Also, I forgot to mention that while I experienced this as a kid, and like we experienced it while we were in our childhoods growing up, adults also did partake in this ritual. But for us, we usually had to do it at our school. The adults usually did it in like old barns that they refurbished and turned into these designated areas for their singing. And the people who had to sing the songs by themselves usually had to say words too. They had to memorize them in a certain order by a certain date, or they would get in trouble. And there would be these designated times that they had to say these words in between each time that they had to sing the songs. Now, the people in this cult who got to sing the songs by themselves and say the words, they were very highly praised. They were thought of as more special than the rest. Even other members of the cult thought of them as better. They were treated better, and they were known by name by the elders of our group. The people who didn't sing by themselves were often overlooked, and there was a lot of jealousy from them as well. They yearned for what the other children had. The songs and the words, and the much more unique and interesting costumes as well. To be able to do these words and song sang by yourself, we were forced to first sing for the elders who were in charge. They got to decide who got to do what after we did that. And there was definitely like favoritism, because any child whose parent was one of the elders in charge would automatically get to say words and sing songs by themselves. Other than that, they just picked the kids who they thought were most deserving. And those who weren't selected would cry and cry and cry. People from outside of the cult would look at us and, they wouldn't understand it. They wouldn't get how badly we wanted this honor. So there would be sheets of paper or little booklets that had our names listed and described what we would be doing. And people who were there to watch us do these songs would usually take pictures of it before our, I don't know what to call this, performance would start. But there was a very, very strict rule about no cell phone usage or photography or videography happening once we started singing the songs. That was a huge no-no. Absolutely not. Not while we were performing the ritual. And there were even like big announcements beforehand telling people not to do so. They would get in big trouble and maybe even kicked out if they did so. And some no-nos for us kids were absolutely no gum or milk. And we had to be absolutely 1000% quiet the entire time. The people watching us, too, also had to be quiet the entire time. The only sound that could happen was from the pre-approved songs and words that we had been given beforehand. Like, other than that, not a peep. The kids would get in so much trouble if they were heard being loud. Oh, and those outfits they made us wear, we couldn't eat in them. No food. Like, that was an absolute huge no-no. The only thing that we could consume while wearing these costumes was water. But they also wanted us to drink pickle juice. When wearing our own clothes, of course, not the costumes. But they would always suggest that. It wasn't necessarily enforced, but it was highly recommended. Honestly, I guess I can show you guys some pictures now from when I was in the cult. So if you don't want to see me in the cult, then feel free to look away now. So there you guys go. I was in the Theater Kid cult, the most complex and intricate cult in the entire world. Now, I know this video is titled something like I escaped the cult, and maybe I've talked about that in this video, like I escaped the cult, but I may have not been telling the whole truth, because once you're part of the Theater Kid cult, you can never leave.